Okay, we're all back. Just reporting out of closed session. The board did give direction in closed session, but no vote was taken. So good morning, everyone. This open session meeting of the Board of Trustees is being live streamed at the direction of the board. The live stream is available on the district's website, and the recordings will be available for viewing the first business day after the board meeting. Modesto City Schools has provided an opportunity for the public to provide comments. It is outlined on the agenda. The public has been given an opportunity to call in and leave a voicemail, send us a comment via email, or appear in person before the board. Any public comments received via email or voicemail following the posting of the board agenda and prior to noon the day of the board meeting will not be read aloud, but have been transcribed and printed with copies provided to each board member prior to the start of the board meeting and are available to the public. The voice and email comments will be attached to a future board meeting minutes for approval. This practice will continue until further notice. For members of the public that are interested in commenting in the future, we welcome your comments. Let's see, regarding public comments, if you wish to address the board during the period for public comments on a subject that is not on the agenda, you must complete a public presentation request card and submit it to the board president prior to the period for public comment. If you need assistance from our translator, please indicate so on the request card. Every person who wishes to address the board, please fill out a card. You will find the cards in the lobby. You can hand your comment card to Ms. Chambers in the back. And also just want to remind everyone that if you wish to make a complaint about a specific district employee, you should follow the district's personnel complaint procedure. Copies of that procedure are available in the lobby, as are agenda copies, which outline the procedures we will observe during the period for public comment. The right to address the board does not exempt the speaker from any potential liability for defamation. So if you plan to speak on a topic, please fill out a card now, as no cards will be accepted after the period for public comment has begun. Maximum time for any one speaker is 3 minutes, and we allow up to 30 minutes for public comment. So we'll now move to the Pledge of Allegiance, and we don't have students to guide us, so you're stuck with me today. Please stand and join us for the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of God, indivisible. Now regarding the approval of order of discussion items. Do I hear a motion to approve the order of discussion action items today? And what would that public request be?
My name is Dwayne Heinrich, and I would just like to petition the board to wanted to speak on item 37 on the agenda, and just to see if that could be possibly moved up.
Okay, any discussion from the board on that request? So would someone like to make a recommendation for?
So I'll make a recommendation and see where the board lands. I know we've done this before, but the board may choose to do differently today. But I will ask if he made a reference to a specific item on the agenda. So I would ask if the board would, yeah, I have it on, but it's not going. You want me to turn it off and turn it on again? Okay, try it again. Whoop, whoop. Let me turn it off. Is yours working? Oh, that one's working. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. So my request is that, since we've, just to ask the board to vote on this and see, since he mentioned the name of the number of the item, if we could move it up and then vote on it and then see where we stand. So to allow public comment if they choose to do it beforehand, and we can have a discussion about that. But I'll make a motion to approve, to allow the public to speak on an item earlier in the agenda. So maybe at the beginning of the meeting or in the middle of the meeting.
Okay, any comments? Or is there a second?
Second, and then you can have comment.
Second to that motion? Okay, second. Those in favor, or are the comments prior to that?
We're just moving this item to the beginning. Okay.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will make that change and move item 37. Was it 37 that was? Yes, move that to the first item on the order of discussion and action. The motion was by trustee Marks, second by trustee Daly. Thank you. And let's see, now we're at the period for public presentation. Thank you for attending our meeting and showing interest in our schools. I've got one card. Were there other cards? Okay. So ask that Mr. Aaron Anguiano come to the podium and address the board.
Good morning. I'm Aaron Anguiano, president of our Latino Community Roundtable. I'm a parent. I have 3 children in your schools, in the elementary, in the junior high, and high school. And I'm here because today you're talking about policy, but I think that sometimes we need to stop and think and say, okay, what is our business? What are we doing here? And then adopt policies consistent with that. And your business is education, educating our children. Okay, and especially in the Latino community, in the Latino community, we have children that are very poor and they're being poorly educated. You know, we have a lot of English learners and a lot of things. And then we have a lot of white teachers and white administrators, and sometimes they don't understand our culture and our children. And that's why you have to have policies to take the bias out of the equation. And that's why I've been asking, advocating that you change the grading policy so where you take out the bias out of it. You know, don't be grading on effort, on participation, on being late. Oh, and we're going to take you out of your school activities on top of that. And we're going to downgrade you on citizenship. You know, those stress and punitive practices need to stop, you know, and putting our children in detention rooms. Why keep a child just sitting there in a detention room and you're paying these 2 vice principals and assistant principals to prosecute the offenses? You know, these children, sometimes they just did a little thing and now it's a big deal. And now they have bad grades. And now they have no quizzes, no tests, sitting for days in a classroom. Oh, the teacher has the right to suspend a child for 2 days. I haven't had any troubles with any teacher suspending my children for 2 days. It's your administrators doing that. You're wasting a lot of time in punishing our children. And you say, oh, social-emotional well-being of the children is really important. Yeah, but we can be talking and contradicting ourselves and putting our children, punishing them. It's a lot of punishing regulations or rules or policies that you have that need to be taken out of the equation. And I have been talking to the administration, but nothing's being done. Something needs to be done. That's what impairs the education of our Latino children. And when the children are not welcome to school, you want to welcome an environment, but then they're not really welcome when they do anything wrong. Like, you're not going to make our Latino children like hot dogs, okay? They eat tacos, and you need to respect that. Okay, just little things like that. Not like we're not cultural no matter what. And like this, civility, perseverance, and all this is not the priority. The priority is English, math, and science. That's what needs to be. That needs to be the priority. This is secondary. They can teach it, but don't grade it because you keep grading it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. although we cannot engage in discussion or formal action on items not on the agenda, we thank you for following the protocol and addressing the board and taking time to share your views with us today. Let's see, so what we're going to do, if everyone can move your binders to number 37. We'll address that agenda item first. And presenter on 37 is Dr. Noguchi.
Wonderful. Are we
So
ready?
Let me make sure that I've got my
The
binder
very
to the right
last,
spot.
second to the last red slot there. So first off, while you're finding your particular board bylaw, I want to thank you all for your Saturday. I know it takes a lot to give up a Saturday with family and friends and community. I do believe that having 2 Saturdays a year, just focusing on board policy, really gives us an opportunity to dig deep with the board policies, rather than putting them in each of the board meetings, because quite frankly, by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, we're tired and we're not as keenly focused. So I do appreciate your time with this. So Board Bylaw 9322 is agenda and meeting materials. Really, the purpose for this revision was to bring it up to date with a mandate from Senate Bill 274 in December of 2022. If you remember, December 2022 was pretty much in the middle of COVID there, and so we were making some changes to board policies to help us navigate that storm. Central to this particular board policy, you'll see that in the changes, it's requiring districts to have a website to email a copy of or a link to our agendas, and we've been doing that now for the last 3 or 4 months. And actually before that, we had a link on our website to be able to provide that. Now we also have a link to in our website to actually have a copy sent directly to any individual that is requesting a copy of our agenda. Additionally, this bylaw also updates to include a focus on student well-being in the philosophy statement as a provision for each of the agenda, and a statement regarding, and this I do believe is important, the options for students, parents, and guardians to request that the directory information and personal information of a student or parent or guardian be excluded from any meeting notes. So that way it's providing just really the privacy of that individual. So with that said, that's just globally where we are with this particular bylaw, and you can see where we have made those changes. I do want to recommend in this particular bylaw, in paragraph 3, so we have agenda content, paragraph 1, 2, 3, that we actually cut out that red content, and I'm going to read the red content. It's pretty long, but I'm going to recommend that we cut this out. And this really came about through a reflection with a board member yesterday, and I'll explain why after I read it for the record.
Can you tell us where we're looking?
It's the third, so we're on Board Bylaw 9322,
Okay,
first page, third paragraph.
okay,
The paragraph begins with, "The agenda shall provide members of the public the opportunity to address the board on any agenda item before or during the board consideration of the item." And then it goes into red, and this is what I'm recommending that we cut. However, the agenda need not provide an opportunity for the public comment when the agenda item has previously been considered at an open meeting by a committee comprised exclusively of board members, provided that members of the public were afforded an opportunity to comment on the item before or during the committee's consideration of the item, and the item has not been substantially changed since the regular board meeting. Now, the reason why I'm asking to have this cut, first, it was put in there to align to the law. We don't have to align to this particular government code because it's not a requirement. The reason why I'm asking to have this pulled is, quite frankly, that's not how this board has operated. In the past, in times where things were very emotional, mass vaccination, closing schools, we opened it up to the public, and this room was completely filled, and we let everybody speak. We didn't limit it to any time frame, either for the individual or the whole. So while I understand why this is in there, given the Senate bill and the time of that Senate bill, which was December 2022, when boards across the nation were really in a state of chaos. This could have helped calm that chaos. However, our local context, I don't believe that we need this in our board bylaw as we move forward. So with that, I will open it up to any additional questions on board bylaw 9322.
So I just want to, for clearance, this would pertain to second readings, correct?
Pertain to second reads, yes.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to open this to the public to see if there are any public comments regarding this board bylaw. If anyone from the public would like to come forward, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Dwayne Heinrich, and thank you, Mr. President, for moving this item up on the agenda. I really appreciate that. And I'm a long-term resident here in Modesto. I'm a parent, grandparent. Kids went to school here, Hart Ransom, Modesto High. So anyway, thank you for making this opportunity possible this morning. And I really appreciate the superintendent's comments regarding the public comment period. I think locally, it's something that we continually need. I did want to preface my comments with the fact that as a board member, I think we need to ask ourselves, is this item on the school agenda, is this item on the agenda make our schools better? Or does this give our students a better education? Having an item like this on the agenda, I wonder. So back to the public comment period. Having a public comment period allows for the freedom of speech. It allows for the right to speak to the board regarding grievances. It allows for a better decision-making by the board. I believe to limit public comment or input is an abuse of power. This board should never have a public meeting without a time for public comment. Just because an item was previously opened for public comment should not preclude public comment at a subsequent meeting. The phrase substantially changed is a very subjective determination. I ask you not to limit opportunities to make comments, supports, or concerns regarding agenda items. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Anguiano.
I agree with that, and I wanted to say that it used to be 5 minutes. I mean, you can limit it maybe to 3 minutes when there's a big line all the way to the street, but when there's 2 of us or 3, why can't we speak for 5 minutes? It's important, the message that we want to give you, however you try to limit it. Also, I've been to other meetings where you start public comment and you can still ask, hey, is there anybody else from the public that wants to make a comment? No, your rule is that to kind of to impair freedom of speech. It's like once we start public comment, you're dead in the water. You can't speak. You shouldn't do that. You know, when you need to allow the parents and the public to participate. Thank you.
The only other point I would make, President Brown, is that we do have a number of public comments that I provided to all of you at the beginning of this meeting, and that's in reference to the same board bylaw.
Okay. Another comment?
Thank you. My name's David Eck. I appreciate that you took a look at this and have decided there was a time originally to put this business in place, and it's not necessary now. Thank you so much. I mean, I heard about this on the radio yesterday, and the reason that's how I got here. I just heard them talking about it, and I was prepared to say when I was reading your little paper here, it says, "We value your comments and create several options to ensure your voice is heard." I was going to say, if this really matters, then don't limit us. We want to say something, we want to say it again. but I discovered this morning, you're all, you know, you're cool with that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. So do we have any other comments from the public? Seeing none, do we have comments or questions from the board? Trustee Maestas.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And my question is, this wording, this phrase is also the same in the consent agenda section. So on the bottom of page 3,
So is it board bylaw B?
BB 9322B, yes.
B.
On the very bottom, the agenda shall provide an opportunity for members of the public, blah, blah, blah. It's the exact same wording. It's just not in red, it's in black and underlined all the way to the end. It's the same thing with the committee and all those things. So my question is, if we line out the front, can we line out that one as well for consent?
So this is already existing board policy, so the agenda shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any consent agenda unless such item has been previously considered. However, the agenda need not provide an opportunity for public comment when the consent agenda item has previously been considered or an open meeting of the committee comprised exclusively of. So in this case, if it's in the consent, it's saying that it cannot be commented on, although if it's in the consent, it can be commented on. So
Yeah,
this
it's
doesn't
a-
make sense.
Right, so the agenda shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment
this
on
could
any
be cut
consent
out.
agenda,
Yeah.
agenda item, period, and then cut the rest out.
Yeah.
That allows for both, that allows for everyone to comment on consent, because a lot of times consent agenda items come from a report that came from before, so
Yep.
we want to give them an opportunity if,
So the
weren't- they
recommendation
weren't
is
here
just
at
to
the
take it
previous
to the
meeting.
first sentence, to the end of any consent agenda, period.
Okay. So we will consider other comments and we'll come back and address these suggested changes. So then, let's see, Trustee Daly. Oh, Vice President Irvin, sorry. Better keep my eyes working.
And I'm just making just a suggestion, is it, or asking a question, or both, possible to table this and try to deep dive it more to see, to take the reflection of the comments of the public to see what's the best strategy to implement this, especially when it says substantially, which is, I do agree, is really broad. So how do you measure that? That word in the context of the board policy.
So it's the recommendation to take that whole paragraph out, so we wouldn't have to identify what's substantial or not substantial. It wouldn't even be reflected in that board bylaw.
Okay.
So just in response to John's, our Trustee Irvin, Vice President Irvin's question, looking at the public comments that we have in writing, it appears that they address the very issues that we've been discussing.
correct?
Yes.
Does anyone see anything in these public comments that are different than what we are addressing with the proposed changes?
No.
Okay. Trustee Daly, you had a comment?
So first, I want to make sure that we're talking about the entire agenda, not specifically just this piece, right? Because I have a question about another portion.
Yes, go
For
ahead.
anything in here.
Okay.
Anything within the board bylaw?
So first, I want to agree, I think this should be completely cut, and I'll close that because that's what I had that open for. The other question that I have is in reference to where it says, if the board president or superintendent deny a request from a board member to place an item on the agenda, the board member may, so it's just that first portion. So there might be a combination of a new board member as well as a concern. my understanding is that we're all equal, so I didn't know that the president had the ability to kind of veto a request that we place something on an agenda.
So if there is an item, and this is in our board bylaws as well, if there is an item that is requested outside the boardroom, because at the very end of each of our agendas, there's always, is there a request? Then it does go to the board president and myself, and then you could always, let's say it's decided that it's not applicable to school business, then it would come back to the board. So at the end of the next board meeting, that board member could say, I really want to talk about, bicycle safety in July, and then you guys can consider what that topic is. Is it relevant to what needs to be put on the board agenda? Now, as far as equal, board presidents in our bylaws and vice presidents do have a different purview and role and responsibility, while all of you are equal here as far as a vote in a public setting. The actions of the board president, there are some different actions that the board bylaws have outlined as far as our protocols, not more powerful, just as a way of moving the work forward, but there's always a safety net, and the safety net here is you could bring it back to the full board to say, I want to bring this forward and see what the six of you think.
Okay. Then can we add in there that, because the red is new wording, right? So can we add in there that it's based on what isn't technically in the board's privy, what isn't part of our responsibility?
No, the board meetings need to evolve and be around the business of the school and not outside business, because our board meetings are school business, not business of, let's say, community separate than school, because certainly community comes into school, but it's not a meeting of something different than school district business.
Right, that's why I'm saying to add in there, because like on the previous board policy meeting, there was a lot of comments about what about future boards and their interpretation on things. And so that's my thought process is would be denied because it's not part of the responsibility.
Oh, I see what
of
you're
our
saying.
board.
So share some language. So share some words, what you would provide here.
Can I suggest first that we look back at the previous paragraph to the red and see if we haven't addressed that?
Jurisdiction of the board.
But doesn't that say from the public? If we add in then from the public or board,
Yeah, that would work. That would cover it.
so this right here says
Public
specifically.
or board member?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good addition.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
addition.
And it's-
That avoids us needing to add another statement. Okay.
So then what I'm hearing, just so I have my notes clear, fifth paragraph, Board Bylaw 9322A, Board President, Superintendent shall decide whether the request from a member of the public or board member is within the jurisdiction, it is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, period. Okay, I misunderstood you.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, Trustee Lopez, you had a comment?
Yes, I did. So for me, I just want to get clarification, and also maybe not just for myself, but for our public. When we're talking about the first line or the third paragraph of this bylaw, we were specifically talking about consent agenda items, correct?
Yes.
We were never at one point or another trying to limit what people say, because there is public comment. There can be public comment on an individual item, right? On our board, you have on each item that we have, or whether it's a report or something that we need to vote on, after the presentation is done, there's public comment on that item. Then within our agenda, there's a period for public comment. So that's a specific area where anyone from the community can come and say anything that they would like, whether it pertains to Modesto City Schools or not, right?
Yeah.
Literally anything that they could possibly think of, they can say it during that time. course, we would want them to focus and growing Modesto City Schools, but necessarily in that time, there's anything that they would like to mention to us, given certain parameters that President will read beforehand, they're welcome to say that. So I don't think that was ever taken, that this was never intent to focus on the period for public comment. It was, and I'm glad that we're taking this off, however, but I do understand, I just wanted to make it clear that it wasn't specifically talking about what you can or cannot do during period for public comment, but it was talking about those consent items and those second readings that we have already addressed in previous. But nonetheless, I just want to make clear that I'm glad that we're taking off this portion that everyone has mentioned, because yes, we should have that availability to even speak on consent on items that are second readings if they chose, they do need to. I just wanted to make the clarification that it wasn't particularly speaking about the period for public comment. Thanks.
All right, I see no other comments requested from the board. Do we have a motion to make the suggested changes, delete the red language in the third paragraph, and also delete,
Add. Here, I'll summarize. So we're
Okay.
looking for a
you.
motion for cutting the red language in the third paragraph on the first page, adding to the very last paragraph of Board Bylaw 9322A, the words "or board member" in that first sentence. And then in Board Bylaw 9322B, very last paragraph, the agenda shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any consent agenda item, period, and delete all the way up through on page C, that first paragraph of that subsequent page on C. Now I'm looking for a motion.
motion by trustee Maestas, second by trustee Mejia. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Ask John when his vote is when he comes back.
Actually, the motion carries by majority. And Mr. Irvin, we just mentioned Mr. Irvin had to step away and was not able to vote on this item. And we do thank the public for being willing to address us today. And please know that your comments are always welcome. Thank you. All right, now we'll flip back to the front of our binders and start moving through the items as they are listed on the agenda. And so the very first one is related to continuation education. And our presenter for this is Mr. Godot.
Sure. Good morning, President Brown, trustees, and community. This morning I have the next 5 items. This item, approval of the first reading of proposed revision of Board Policy 6184, continuation education. This item addresses mandates from March 2023 related to AB 740. AB 740 extends the requirement to provide written notice of the opportunity to request a meeting with the superintendent or designee prior to an involuntary transfer to a foster youth educational rights holder, attorney, and social worker, or an Indian child's tribal social worker, and if applicable, county social worker, and also provides that a foster youth educational rights holder, attorney, and county social worker, and an Indian child's tribal social worker, if applicable, a county social worker would have the same rights as a parent at such a meeting with the superintendent or designee.
Are we in the right book?
Am I?
Oh, it's in the AR.
Yes. Sorry, I'm just giving the context of AB.
I read that, but I was like, I am not finding it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry. I was giving context for AB 740 and what it was bringing, so, yes. Apologies. The board policy is lightly revised, but with that, I will turn it over to the board.
All right. First of all, do we have any comments from the public related to this board policy? Seeing none. Questions from the board? Or comments? Trustee Daly?
Okay, so my question is more in general. Both Dr. Noguchi and Deputy Superintendent Godot, yes, both made mention to the law. Can we, am I missing it? Is it actually on here? Or can we, for the next board policy, start adding those?
They're all right in the
There's legal references at the back of the board policy.
Right, but these aren't the ABs. These are the codes and stuff, so there's,
So education code is law, and so there's different things that'll govern why we are recommending to put items in our board policy. Not everything needs to be put in board policy. There's things that by law we have to do. Those are kind of non-negotiable. We can like it or not, but we still have to pass it because it's law. That's the legislature. There's other things, like the last one was, it wasn't required by law, so we could take that out. So there, you'll hear today, as you go through this binder, there will be some things that say this is ed code and it's mandated, and then there'll be other things that are not mandated.
yes, I see the ed code. What I would also like to see is the actual either Senate bill or the Assembly bill that has been referenced with both of the last two that we've talked about, and I don't see that.
And I don't know that we could do that research on all of this. That I don't know. We could look into that. We may need to hire a full-time person for that. But, but I don't know.
So both Superintendent Godot and yourself mentioned a law.
Yes,
And that may have been because there's a change.
yes.
So when there is that change, I mean, like, I don't expect somebody to go back and say, okay, so these are all where these came from. So, but when there is that change, can we, because you already know about it.
Might it be that the Assembly bill is revising the ed code through the language? That's what's bringing it to, and then the impact in the language is within.
So let me share this process. So, and Trustee Marks can help with this also if I'm not accurate. So each year, we get literally hundreds of bills that go through the legislature, and some get passed, some don't get passed. Those that get passed, CSBA, California School Boards Association, go back to board policies and say, oh, we need to change this, we need to change this, we need to change this, and these are mandated. So they will then send Antoinette, here's a list of mandated changes you have to do, and then also other changes that you should consider or not consider. And so really, it's CSBA is the ones that bring us here today. So all this red is really CSBA looking at the language of new laws and embedding it into these board policies. So for instance, you could go to Poway or wherever, what other school district, go to board policy 6184, pretty certain they're going to be pretty close. So it's kind of a way of having some consistency across the state. Trustee Marks, is there anything different with that? And the reason why I bring Trustee Marks is because she was president of CSBA at one point.
No, that's correct. And they, CSBA will lobby on our behalf. They will lobby for or against different bills and very vehemently on some things that may have a detrimental impact on our students. And then sometimes we lose, and then the bill goes through, and then yes, it becomes a law, which is really difficult because sometimes there's 500 laws proposed to change education and 250 of them might pass. So we have to that's why we're doing all these changes. So I thought that was a good summary, Dr. Noguchi.
I don't think my question, though, is being understood, so what I'll do is I'll
okay.
talk a little bit more in the one-on-one with you.
Okay,
so.
perfect.
And we're welcome to lobby legislators if there's something that we see that we disagree with or that we think is not helpful for our school district, especially in particular, and telling them stories about why it isn't helpful is really good for them, because then they hear that and then they go, oh, I didn't realize that was the impact of this. Well, we could change the bill next year. And so they might get enough signatures to change the bill. So that's what we want to do.
Trustee Mejia?
Okay.
There's something changed. You want them to say like SBT 1993 is the bill that's changing this policy when we do have changes.
And then
That's
maybe,
kind of what I'm, that's
yeah.
kind of what I'm hearing, like, just.
That's what I'm
the
thinking.
AB or whatever that may be, just to make a, yeah, okay, that's not, okay.
We could
I know it's a
ask-
lot of work, but I don't know, I'm just, that's
If you
kind of what
just-
I'm hearing.
Yeah, and if you just put that number there or the bill, then anybody can go online and just type that in and do a search. And then we can just find the language for ourselves to read that. I think that's what she's mentioning.
So we could ask CSBA to do that. I mean, they're obviously, they know what bill it is and they know what's happening and why it's being done a certain way. So we could ask CSBA to do that. I'll be there, I would have been there today, but I'll be up there in about 2 months.
Yeah,
I can
we,
email the legislative department and ask them to change it. And we just had a legislator on the CSBA. We had a call with the new lawyer that's going to be, or the new lobbyist that's going to be taking over for Dennis. Dennis is retiring at CSBA, and so this new person is going to take over. But we can ask them that in their legal department if they could please add the Senate bill or the Assembly bill that this is coming from and reference that in our board policy.
so we could ask them to address that question, because if we have it on some items and not others, we would be full of inconsistencies.
Right.
So we need to get their legal direction on how we would do that if we don't have it for every item in our board policies.
But going forward, I wouldn't ask them to go back to all the ones that have already passed. That would just take years. So, but to ask them to do it for those going forward, and as they pass, please add them in. They already do government code, they do ed code, and then just add in a Senate bill and Assembly bill and see if they could do it. They'll have a number.
So Cindy, will you ask that
I
question?
will ask them, yes.
Okay, all right. Does that address your need? Yes. Good. All right, trustee Maestas.
So I have a sort of a similar comment on that. It looks like the new requirements based on the bill are really in the AR, not in any of the board policy piece. The only shift I see here is in at promise and emphasize in our board policy. Everything else is in AR.
Correct.
So, how necessary, in this one I see there's two things will change. When we vote, we're gonna change the BP, but we're not changing anything about the AR. We don't change anything about the AR, that's you guys. So my question is, how necessary is it to bring up some policies in these meetings if we're not changing anything in a policy, but it's changing in AR? It's just simple report, hey, here's what the changes are, here's AR. Thank you for help. Thank you for.
So this way I can share, and certainly those that are veteran to school boards can chime in their expertise on this. ARs, you're right, you don't vote on ARs because that's the how. You charge the superintendent and designees to implement the what, and that's the board policies. Now, when I first came on and we were looking at board policies and we were behind many, it was, let's not bring the ARs forward, because you're not voting on them, but let's not bring the ARs forward. And it was a strong view of this board is that they still wanted to see the ARs, so they're still aware of how we're doing our work. Even though it's not voted on, they still wanted to be abreast of it. Now, what I have asked staff to do is not necessarily go over ARs. It's kind of like, here's the accompanying AR, and so that way we don't have to bring language to it. We go over what we need to do for the board policy, your purview, and for those that want to know, okay, how are you going to implement it? Then it's there, but it's not necessarily discussed at the board meeting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like that old adage, it could have been done in an email, right? So that's what I'm asking for there.
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't make that connection very well at the front end, but that's why I was bringing in that because there wasn't much changed in the BP. And I
Right.
was trying to bring voice to the Assembly bill that was bringing this forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, trustee Marks, did you have another comment?
I just wanted to say that I appreciate that, and I always appreciate seeing how we're doing the work that we're doing, and any changes in the AR is always beneficial for us to recognize, oh, now we've added a lot more definitions of who we're helping in the continuation education. on this particular item. So I appreciate that. And so I thank you, the superintendent, for continuing to bring the ARs forward to us.
Great.
And if we have any input on it, I think it's helpful if we go, oh, could we change it to this? So I appreciate that too.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for approval of the first reading of the proposed revision of board policy 6184?
I move approval.
Motion by trustee Marks, trustee Mejia, second. Those in favor? Aye. Moving on to number 2, the approval of the first reading of proposed revision of board policy 0420.4, school charter authorization and review of administrative regulation.
All right, good morning again. This morning, this BP is being brought forward due to some mandates, again, speaking to Assembly Bill 1505 and 1595, which extends the timeline for holding a public hearing to determine the level of support for a charter petition, and extends the timeline for making the final decision to grant or deny that petition, and defines receipt of the petition for the purpose of determining the beginning of this time period. And a number of other requirements that have been adjusted. Additionally, the policy is being updated to reference that until January 1st, 2025, the board is prohibited from approving a petition for the establishment of a new charter school offering non-classroom-based instruction.
All right, do we have any public comment regarding this board policy? Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the first reading of this board policy 0420.4?
I move, oh, go ahead.
Motion by trustee Maestas.
Second. Oh,
I
Joe,
saw a
you
second
can
by
go.
trustee Lopez. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So we move on to number 3. And this is approval of first reading of proposed revision of board policy, BP 0420.41, school charter oversight and review of Exhibit E.
Again, this board policy is being brought forward due to some mandates from June 2023, AB 181 and AB 748, and it's being updated to reflect that the board may deny a request for an expansion that constitutes a material revision to a charter if the request to expand operations is demonstrably unlikely to serve the interests of the entire community in which the school is proposing to locate, or the district is not in a position to absorb the fiscal impact of the proposed charter school. It's also updated to include that the district may charge the charter school for the actual costs of supervisorial oversight up to 1% of the charter school's revenue if the district provides the charter with facilities and charges the charter school a pro rata share of the facilities costs. Additionally, the policy's been updated to reference additional components that must be included in the procedures specified in the charter for when a charter school ceases operations.
Thank you. Any public comment regarding this board policy? Or I see trustee Maestas has a comment.
Yeah, I have a question. How many charters do we oversee in our district?
2, I believe.
2? What are they?
Yeah, Connecting Waters and Aspire.
Are there any other charters in the area that aren't in our, do we know of ones that aren't in our purview?
Golden Valley Charter?
Golden Valley, and do they, because they reside in a different jurisdiction area, those are oversight for those districts?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any in the west or southwest Modesto? Aspire is there? Aspire is there, right?
Aspire is over in the, where the SOS
By the
used to be
golf course,
located by
right?
the golf course?
Yeah.
Correct.
That's right. Is that K-12?
It is.
I believe so, yes. Trustee Mejia?
Okay. Yeah, I should. That's all. I just had a question about this.
Okay.
Just so you're aware, every charter had to come through our board, and Great Valley came to us first because they wanted to be housed in a different area, so they came to us first, and we denied it because they didn't meet the criteria. I think there were 2 others we said no on, and then the Connecting Waters and Aspire, we approved those 2, so they're under our jurisdiction. So I just wanted to let you know, it was quite a lengthy process, and I know the staff spent many, many hours and days and weeks preparing to review those and then bring them to the board. It was a binder like this thick for each one.
Trustee Lopez, did you have a comment?
I had a question, and I'll, maybe not a question for me, but a public comment from for a community member. A couple weeks ago, we were in a meeting and they were talking about Christian, Modesto Christian. And so they were saying that if they fell under our jurisdiction, and so if someone can explain or knows what's the difference between, we do have charters under our jurisdiction, but private schools fall under, or how does that work out?
Charter schools are public entities that receive public funding, and so the state changed the law to allow charter schools. Private schools are still private. They're privately funded, they're privately run. They don't go by the public education rules. And so it's up to them on how they want to run their schools.
And they can be placed anywhere they would like, right?
Yes,
privately,
correct,
yeah.
correct, yeah. And, yeah, because they're
You don't
privately
need our
funded.
approval.
Right, they don't need our approval, right.
Right.
So they're privately funded.
That's what I mentioned to the community member. I'm glad that we're on. That was exactly what I had mentioned.
You knew.
Vice President Irvin?
Yes, excuse me, I had to step out because I had an appointment to be on at 10 o'clock, but I noticed I missed the first one about continuing education. I just wanted to make a comment that I don't think, at risk was good, taken off, at promise was taken off. I mean, I believe there shouldn't be anything there. We shouldn't have to distinguish between at risk, that all of our students in this district are at promise. And so just having it, a flexible education, students who may need a flexible education environment, I think is, it says for itself. That's just my comment, but I missed it.
All right, so
All kids are at promise.
let that be noted. So back to item number 3. Do we have a motion to approve the first reading of proposed revision for board policy BP 0420.41? Motion by trustee Lopez, second by trustee Marks. Those in favor?
Aye.
So we move on now to item 4, which is approval of the first reading of proposed revision of board policy 0420.43, charter school revocation. And that's still you.
That is correct.
Mr.
So once again, some more charter school revisions. This policy is being updated to reflect mandates from March 2020, which designate that the policy has to be updated to move up the material regarding immediate revocation of a charter school in the event of a severe or imminent threat to the health or safety of students, and to reflect AB 1505, which provides that increases in student achievement for all numerically significant student groups should be a factor, not necessarily the most important factor, in determining whether to revoke a charter. The section on school closure was added to clarify if the charter school is revoked. If the charter school is revoked and ceases operation, the closure procedure specified in the charter will be implemented.
All right. Any questions or comments from the public on this item? Any questions or comments from the board? Do we have a motion? Trustee Estes, and second by trustee Marks. Those in favor? Aye. Aye? Great. So on to number 5, and that's still Mr. Godot. That is approval of the first reading of proposed revision of Board Policy BP 6020, parent involvement, and review of the administrative regulation.
Yes, sir. So again, speaking to a mandate from May of 2020, this policy is being updated to reflect the requirements to work with parents and guardians and family members to jointly develop the district's parent involvement policy and to include strategies for family engagement in the local control and accountability plan. For districts that receive federal Title IV funding for family engagement programs, the policy adds the requirement to inform parents, guardians, and organizations of the existence of the program. The policy also contains material formally in the AR regarding the inclusion of the Title I Local Educational Agency Plan into the LCAP and the distribution of the district and school level parent involvement policies.
All right, do we have comments from the public on this item? Mr. Anguiano.
Yes, and we've been advocating for parent involvement all the time. In series, parents are involved a lot more than here. In series, they have the whole community center full of parents and the administration listening. Here, we don't have that. Okay, and whenever we parents make a recommendation or discussion, we're just dismissed. We're never told we're gonna change this, look at this, we're gonna do this, we did this, nothing, we're ignored. And at least it looks that way, okay? And then, so you like local control. You know, Reagan told us, oh, this big government is not good, look, take it back, the power of the states, the local control, they know better of the problems, they can solve it themselves. And you embrace that. And I guess you were here, remember? And so, and then, okay, we're here in local control. And then I was in an LCAP, and I'm still in an LCAP committee. And so, okay, we make recommendations, we talk about it, but at the end, sometimes we don't see the final document. At the end, we don't know which of our recommendations or discussions were adopted or not. You really need to take it more seriously. Get the parents involved, because it's local control and the schools need to be run by the parents. We vote, we have our children, we bring in millions of dollars to the district. It's our tax money, okay? It's not yours and you two decide alone. It's all of us together. And I would like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving now to comments and questions from the board, Vice President Irvin.
On from before?
Okay, all right. So Trustee Marks.
Yes, I was really happy to see this one, and I really like the jointly develop and agree upon policy and strategies. That new verbiage I just like the idea of it, helping, working with our parents to bring it about. So I was really pleased to see this one. And I agree that, you know, parent involvement is extremely important, and that helps our students succeed. So whatever we can do to help improve on that, I think we should be doing. And so, but I just like this policy. So I just had to make that comment. I already told Dr. Noguchi when I spoke with her, but I was like happy about it. That's it.
All right, Trustee Lopez.
Yes, thank you. Similarly, I really like this VP. It's something that we're constantly talking about in terms of we need our parents by our side. We need them to be better engaged, but also engagement does not mean attendance. It means that we need to invest into our parents and we need to invest into their understanding of our system and how they can best influence and impact conversation and discussion of the work that we do, right? That we have to maintain. So I think them understanding, them being properly educated around how they can best influence and be a part of the decision-making process is how we're going to have parent engagement, right? But we also know that comes with attendance. We need our parents there. We need them to be involved. They need to be present. And for us to also adjust the way that we do our work so that we can adjust to their presence. So I really enjoyed reading this, especially the first page, because it really sees the parent as a partner in this process. Thank you.
Trustee Marks, you have another
I
comment.
did, I had a question. So, I had a question on page AR 6020A. It's changing the word from shall to may. And I just wanted to know why. And I like the shall because it meant we were going to do it, but the may says we can do it or not do it. So I just wanted to know what the change was.
That was just part of the recommended guidance that came from CSBA. It just aligned.
So I'm just going to ask, can we make it shall so that we are responsible to do those things in A, B, C, D, E, F? I know we took out G, or G's been taken out, but that was on resource centers. But the,
In AR 6020A.
Yes.
So now,
Can we just make it from?
yeah, we won't vote on that.
Give
We're
a
just giving a
suggestion that
suggestion.
we keep the shall and we can ask.
You can make the recommendation, we won't
Right,
vote
but
on
we
it.
can ask the staff and we have to agree on it, so we could do thumbs up. But would the board be okay with changing it back to shall? Yes, we can. Yes, we can
We can
change the
recommend,
AR.
we can recommend
ask
it.
the staff to change it. Yes, it doesn't mean that we have no say in the AR, but we can say, we would like to have this, and if you think it is good still with May, that's fine too. I just wanted to know. I'm asking the board if we could do that.
Do we have a thumbs up on that? Are you?
Are we good with
I'm
shall?
fine with
You
it.
can read them, assist parents, guardian, I mean, you can read them all, so.
I would just go on record saying that I agree with the recommendation that it be put back to shall.
Okay,
All right.
so we can ask staff to change it back to shall.
Okay, so
you.
we will
Wait.
not vote on the AR.
Right, you're not voting, but we're asking the staff to change it back to shall.
Vice President Irvin, you had a comment? You were there, now you're gone.
Yeah, all right. I just want to, comment on, like, parent involvement is essential. The child's first teacher is their parent, long before they get into any pre-K or any program designed to help their development from infancy on, is the parent that is their first teacher. So I do think also that attendance is important for parents to attend, meetings, events, and things like that. Just like for our students, they can't maximize their learning if they're not attending regularly. And with that being said, I know we're offering there's a vehicle being offered to students who increase their attendance and 100% attendance. I would like to say we should seek a benefactor or someone who could do that for our parents, who could donate a car to have and for parents who come and participate and engage. Part of that is engagement. And see where it gets us. We need to pull out all stops to get our students to attend school regularly. We need to pull out all stops to get our parents to attend and engage in the process of educating their children. So I'm definitely going to ask a couple car dealers that I know, see if we can do that. But I just think we can bring some excitement to this, to this very worthy and critical need for our parents to engage our district, in agreement with Mr. Aguiano Esquire over there, that we need to do, more to get our parents engaged in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. We've seen great progress over the last few years in this regard, and it is a high priority of our board, and I would like to personally recommend approval for this reading of the proposed revision of Board Policy 6020, and ask for a second. Second by Trustee Daly. Those in favor? Aye. That passes.
I just
Thank
have
you.
a question, I had made reference to a typo on page K, but I'm sure the staff knows about that. It's just a slash that was missing.
Yes, we've made that notation.
Figure. Awesome.
Okay, great. All right, moving on, and our presenter is now Mr. Rich.
Me.
Number 6 is approval of first reading of proposed revision of Board Policy 5148, Child Care and Development, and review of the proposed draft of AR for that as well.
Thank you, Board President. Board Policy 5148 and the corresponding AR, which is a new AR, includes information regarding our district's early childhood education and child care and development programs, and describes how services are provided to our infants, toddlers, and preschool-age children in family child care homes and center-based programs. This board policy was last approved in December of 2021. It's been updated to reflect new state regulations in Title V and the Welfare and Institutions Code. Two of the most notable differences or additions are mandated language regarding distance learning if that ever has to happen, and as well as TK eligibility and childcare programs.
Great. Do we have any comments from the public on this particular board policy? Seeing none. Comments or questions from the board? Vice President Irvin, are you on this item, or is that a carryover? All right. So seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the first reading of Board Policy 5148? I saw Trustee Lopez before I heard your voice, so motion by Trustee Lopez, second by Trustee Maestas. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. We'll now move to item 7, which is still with Mr. Rich. Approval of first reading and proposed revision of Board Policy BP 6174, Education for English Learners, and review of proposed draft of the AR in that regard.
So Board Policy 6174 and the corresponding AR includes information regarding our district's English learner processes such as identification and assessment, parent notification, language acquisition programs, reclassification, and advisory committees such as the DLAC or ELAC committees. This board policy was last approved in September and October of 2019. It's been updated to reflect the CSBA guidance on some cleanup language, as well as a mandate to include the new Ed Code 48345 regarding teacher shortages and an option that new Ed Code provides. And it's recommended that we approve the first reading.
Great. Do we have any comments from the public regarding this board policy? Seeing none, comments, I see a couple of board members. Trustee Maestas?
Just a comment on the first page. I appreciate the language in the second paragraph, identifying the instruction for English learners. And is this, so I got I guess I got a question on this. What is the first page? First page, BP 6174, second paragraph. English learners shall be provided differentiated English instruction, English language development instruction, which is targeted to their English proficiency level. Does that include, is that just for designated, or is that designated and integrated?
That would include both.
Okay, so I really appreciate the sentence, such instruction shall be based on sound instructional theory, be aligned with state content standards, emphasize inquiry-based learning and critical thinking skills, and be integrated across all subject areas. So as we move forward, we know that, the new science standards framework adopted quite a while ago, the new mathematics framework just adopted, all of them point to this stuff here. So I appreciate that wording, and I encourage us as we move forward as a district on trying to get our teachers and admin and everywhere to start to look at how we can best support our English learners and all our students in these types of instructional strategies. That's all.
Thank you. Trustee Marks?
So I just wanted to ask if we could keep the last part of that sentence that's lined out in that second paragraph. In order that students may have access to the full educational program and have assistance in achieving results at the same academic level as English proficient peers. Just said it so succinctly, I think. But it's up to the board. I wanted to ask if we could just keep that.
The reason for the strikeout is throughout the rest of the policy, this puts it in alignment with CSBA language, and the rest of the policy really outlines in greater detail what those specific programs are, whether it be, as you look at like the governing board, later on it says the governing board intends to provide English learners with challenging curriculum instruction that maximize the attainment of high levels of English language proficiency, advanced multilingual capabilities, talks about full course, talks about A through G courses. So the rest of the policy really goes to outline that specific intent. And so the staff removed this just because they felt it was redundant.
And I liked it because it was succinct and it's right at the beginning, so it kind of gets you ready to hear all the new stuff that you're talking about, all the ways that CSBA is clarifying it. But I just
So
like to keep it, is all.
my question to that then would be, is there any conflict between that statement and any of the other language?
No, there's no conflict.
So trustee Marks has proposed that. Do we have support to add that back in as part of an approval? Would someone like to make the motion to approve by adding that? Trustee Lopez, I'm sorry, there was a couple more comments.
No, you asked the question I was gonna ask. If it doesn't conflict, I'm okay with keeping it on there.
Okay, and Vice President Urban?
Same thing. I was just gonna say, does it, is it just because it's so verbose or, yeah. Was there a word count limit or something? No, I'm good.
The typewriter ran out of ribbon. Okay, so trustee Mastis, motion to approve, second by trustee Mejia.
With the addition back in the last sentence in that second paragraph.
Okay, great. Second by trustee Mejia. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. So we move now to item 8, which is Mr. Herbst.
Yeah, good morning, Board. BP 5021 includes information on non-custodial parents, and it really provides clarity on the district's desire to have parents involved, as well as balancing the need to ensure safety of students while at school, especially when there's custody disputes. The BP is new and follows the language recommended by California School Boards Association. It's recommended that the board approve the first reading of BP 5021.
All right, do we have any public comment regarding this new policy? Seeing none. Comment from the board. This new policy recommendation, and I see none, so do we have a motion for approval of the first reading and proposed draft of board policy 5021 regarding non-custodial parents?
Got a question.
Motion by trustee Mejia, second? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Vice President Urban, question?
Does this have anything to do, and this goes back to a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, his daughter, husband's girlfriend got the child from school.
No,
Yeah, so.
different.
Okay. Yeah, so he was a non-custodial parent, but he sent the girlfriend. So that wouldn't happen in this case in terms of,
Correct.
right, okay.
Thank you for the comment. Do we have a motion? Trustee Mejia, did you make the motion? And a second by Vice President Urban. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. That's number 8. We're moving on to item number 9. And that is approval of the first reading of the proposed revision of Board Policy 5030 for student wellness.
Yeah, BP 5030 and AR 5030 includes information on student wellness. The policy demonstrates the district recognition that student health is linked to student learning and outlines various requirements regarding student wellness, which is a federal requirement. The policy has been approved by the District Wellness Committee last year. It's recommended that the board approve the revisions to BP 5030.
And do we have any comments from the public on this board policy? Mr.
I'm
Anguiano.
Aaron Anguiano, parent of 3 children in your district. And so, yes, student wellness is very important. And in those intervention rooms, you have a hybrid. You have children that come in, we're gonna give them some services, and that's really good. But you give me the hybrid, you keeping those children in detention. Get rid of that detention. Bring in the child, give them services, and you're done. Talk to the parents and deal with it. We can't just be holding children in rooms without teaching them out of their normal learning environment, their own teacher. That's my problem, and that's why I talked to Mr. Herbst many times. So I like to see that, no hybrid. Make it real. Let's talk about student wellness, not punishment. Thank you.
All right. Back to the board for comments and questions. I see Trustee Maestas.
Thank you. On 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, page 5, BP 5030D. Student wellness, in order to ensure that students have access to comprehensive health. We're on that page. The third paragraph down. The superintendent or designee shall encourage staff to serve as positive role models for healthy eating and physical fitness. They shall promote worksite wellness programs and may provide opportunities for regular physical activity among employees. So I have a bit of a question. I'm all for promoting healthy eating and physical fitness and having role models on campus. My question is, does that last sentence necessarily need to be in the student wellness section with promoting worksite wellness programs for employees? I don't see anything in the AR that even hits that part. And so with no piece of the AR that provides any information on physical activity among employees or providing opportunities for wellness programs for employees, I'm not quite sure that should be in this policy necessarily, unless there's a piece in the AR
Only
that follows that.
concern is there's a federal checkoff and an audit that happens once every 3 years, I believe. And so that requirement in there, and there's a lot of good work being done by the Human Resources Division to do staff wellness, including potentially physical activity. I would have to go back and check the federal assessment, but I believe that that's wording that's in there.
But do we have, do we have a board policy on employee wellness?
Correct.
Then why does it need to be here?
I believe that this aligns with what the federal requirements are that should be in a wellness policy.
Okay. All right, so basically it can't be changed.
I believe it's one of the assessments that we have to measure that it's part of our wellness policy.
So follow up on that. Stays in here, that's fine. In the AR, can you make note of something that we provide for employees? Just so that connects within our board policy?
You bet.
I know that there's another one that does, but if you just have a small statement in the AR that connects to this, then it wraps everything up. That's my recommendation.
Okay, Trustee Marks.
So I would like to see us define on that same page, BP 5030, the comprehensive health services. What does that entail? So the very first line on BP, on D, 5030D, in order to ensure that students have access to comprehensive health services, I just wanted to know what that was.
So examples of comprehensive health services include the before and after school expanded learning services that are done in some cases. It can include health education at the multiple grade levels that are outlined, first aid, hearing, vision, scoliosis screening, nutritional support, tobacco cessation, substance abuse, suicide prevention and counseling, health and development assessments, emergency care, and school nursing services.
So I really appreciate that because when I read that, it could be like stuff that's way outside of that. And so could we just add that list in there so we're clear with what this actually encompasses? Because I get questions like, does this mean students can leave campus for certain, things? So that's where I get the questions from. So if it's defined in there, it's not that, it's this. And so no one can say, oh, well, you're trying to just hide that by not defining it. So could we just define it?
Yeah, we could definitely spell it out if that's the decision of the board. That is typically the comprehensive health services that are provided
Yeah,
for our
because
students.
it just helps. And I was like, oh, that's great. I can clarify that to the public if they ask me questions. So thank you.
Right, trustee Daly.
I agree with that. I'm a little bit concerned about that not being clarified. As well as I have a question, although it may not be the most appropriate BP, I will validate that for this question. So on BP 530C, paragraph 3, it says all students shall be provided opportunity to be physically active on a regular basis. However, in consequences that I have heard recently, recess may be taken away for academic assignments not being completed.
So there's a state mandate that we have to have for elementary, for K-8, we have to have, self-contained K-8, we have to have 200 minutes of physical activity every 2 weeks. So it's a mandate that we have to do regardless. So that's what they have.
So what is the reason that I've heard in classroom settings where if assignments aren't completed, that they will complete them during recess? Okay. Okay, that was my primary question is, am I in the wrong BP? Because that might be, okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? So do we have a motion to approve the first reading of proposed revision to Board Policy 5030, Student Wellness?
Health services. Yep, got it.
Great.
Sorry.
Motion by trustee Mejia with the revisions, and second by Vice President Irvin. Those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And we now move to item number 10. Which is the review of proposed revision of the AR 5131.41, use of seclusion and restraint.
AR 5131.41 includes information on seclusion restraint. The update, which I like, provides greater clarity and aligns with education code in that the use of seclusion and restraint is done only as a method of last resort. It also is helpful because it outlines some information on students with disabilities and the need to create a behavioral incident report, behavioral emergency report in any situations to where either of those would occur. It's any questions, concerns with the revisions to AR 5131.41.
All right, do we have any public comment regarding this this AR? And any questions or comments from the board? So is there a board policy that this ties to?
No, actually, it's just an administrative regulation that comes through on there, which is, I mean, as recommended by California School Boards Association.
Okay, so it is an AR with a number that fits into our numbering system.
Correct.
But there is no corresponding board policy.
Correct, in that
Okay.
particular case.
Any other questions, trustee Irvin? Motion? We don't need a motion. This is a review only. So thank you. And we had no questions regarding that. So now we'll move on to number 11. That was my question. Item 11 is approval of the first reading of the proposed revision of Board Policy 5138, electronic signaling or communication devices.
All right, so the request is gonna be twofold here, so follow me on this. So I'm gonna talk about BP 5131.8 includes information on mobile communication devices. That's what you've got in there. The BP provides updated information on our mobile communication device procedures as outlined in our conduct code. The request is twofold because of a number, just a number, so follow me on this. I'm requesting deletion of BP 5138 on electronic signaling devices or communication devices, and the inclusion of BP 5138 to follow CSBA. So I'm recommending the deletion of 5138, which is somewhat outdated, and approve BP 5131.8. Falls in line with California School Boards Association, and I believe that the other policy is dated.
Yes.
All right, any questions or comments from the public on this one?
Sometimes the children that are not in special ed, so I see an exception of use of phones, smartphones for children that have IEPs. But sometimes there's children without IEPs that need the phone to take a picture about homework or how to do a task or something like that. So we can't just prohibit it, blanket, but it's just be aware of that sometimes I see my oldest son sometimes taking pictures at the board or whatever the teacher's doing, so to be able to do his homework. Instead of writing a bunch of notes, just take a picture with your cell phone. Thank you.
All right, I see some comments or questions from the board. Trustee Marks?
I just wanted to say that I'm so appreciative of some restrictions on the use of the cell phones in the classroom, because that has become an issue in the classroom for many teachers, and it's been very frustrating because we didn't have, our board policy was too lenient. So it's great. For me personally, it's great to see us move from no electronic devices, then making a rule about electronic devices, because then we had them, and then determining, oh, we needed to be a little more lax in some ways, and now we're realizing, hey, we need to be a little more strict. So I just appreciate the adaptation of our board in response to different things that are happening in our society. So I think it'll help our students pay attention more. I think it'll help the teachers keep attention more. And I know I can't wait to tell my neighbor who is a substitute teacher and let him know, because he's been very frustrated with this. So thank you. I think this is a great change.
All right, Trustee Daly. Do you have something?
So I have a question in reference to a student may be also be subjected to discipline in accordance with the law for off-campus, I skipped a couple words, 531.8B, paragraph 4, just so you know where I'm at, I apologize. For off-campus use of mobile communication devices which pose a threat or danger to the safety of students. So would this be in reference to maybe cyberbullying and things like that?
Could potentially, could also be a school threat.
On Saturday.
All right. Now Trustee Maestas.
Cool, thank you. I had the same, similar thing. I had mentioned to my son, I said, hey, what would you think if and he's like, oh, that's not right. Well, and then I explained to him, what if someone's bullying or someone there? Oh, okay, yeah, we need to make sure that kids aren't doing. So it makes sense, and we need to have something in there. And the second thing is, there's a push and pull and something to be loose and tight with mobile devices in the classroom. I have, and so I appreciate in number 2, on A, the teacher administrator does have ability to grant permission to the student to possess and reasonable limitation to impose, because classrooms that I work with right now, we do a lot of work on vertical whiteboards, and the students don't really they do more math on whiteboards than they do taking notes at all. And so at the end of the time, they need to go and snap a picture of what they did so they can go back and read and look over it. So, which is a great use of cell phone technology. I know a lot of kids, I know I do it. We go to a conference and we're like, snap a picture, right? So,
They never send out the PowerPoint
That's right.
Right. Exactly. Put the PowerPoint up. Or they give you a QR code to access the PowerPoint. So I appreciate that little bit of wiggle room, but I also agree with trustee Marks that, that having a board policy that really, emphasizes the education of students and getting kind of these out of, out of the classroom as much as possible is important.
So I do have a question also. Basically, the policy states that the students aren't to use their cell phones unless they have permission to do so. However, we know that there are cases where students will video something that has happened in a classroom. So well, we've told them that it's not admissible unless they have permission. Is the video content that they take permissible if it is needed for evidence?
Yeah, we would use that for evidence if we were able to get our hands on it. That being said, a student that is just recording in a classroom without permission, yeah, that would not be allowed.
Okay. So if they see something going on that shouldn't and they video it,
Correct, we could
we're
still
going to
use
be
it
able
for
to use it.
for evidentiary purposes, correct?
Okay, that was my question about this. All right, do we have a motion for approval of item number 11, which is the first reading and proposed revision of Board Policy 5138, electronic signaling and communication devices?
I move approval to do two things that we need to do. One is remove the board policy 5138 on electronic signaling or communication devices, and then approve the new mobile communication devices 5131.8.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
It was trustee Mejia. Sorry.
Motion by
Maestas
Maestas.
and then Mejia, yeah.
Yes, thank you. All righty. I'm going to recommend that we take just a short break. So 5 minutes, is that adequate?
That'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
Testing.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Very helpful.
That online, because I couldn't remember how many bench.
All right, we're making progress. We're on to number 12, which is approval of the first reading of proposed revision of Board Policy 5144, subpoena power related to expulsion proceedings.
5144 and subpoena power, is that what it's listed there? I have 5144 as discipline. Oh, you know what? I apologize. Now I flipped the page too prematurely. Don't know why my board policies are so tricky, but follow me on this one. So, board policy 5144 is on discipline, and that's new language. But we do already have something existing in 5144. So you'll see it, my recommendation. I'd like to move that to 5144.3, but back to the work at hand. BP 5144, which is the new red language, that's board policy provides written guidance regarding our desire to provide a safe, supporting, and positive school environment. The policy also encourages,
Wait. We're on
oh, I'm sorry.
12.
Okay, I see. It's actually jumping ahead. Well, BP 5144 is on subpoena power and expulsion proceedings. I am recommending that we move that board policy to 5144.3.
Got it. So that's the only change?
Yes.
All right. Any public comment on that, that change? Or questions from the board? Do we have approval to move 5144 to 5144.3?
I move approval.
Motion by trustee Marks, second by trustee Mejia. Those in favor? Aye. Okay, so then we can move on to number 13, which is, sorry, my page.
Discipline.
Approval of the first reading of proposed draft of 5144. Discipline and review of proposed draft of AR 5144, which is discipline.
Yeah, BP 5144 and its corresponding AR is new language on discipline. The board policy provides written guidance regarding our desire to again provide the safe, supporting, positive environment. And it really does, which I like, encourages the use of positive intervention, in some case restorative practices, and only using discipline when other means of corrections have not been successful. This follows the process that's actually outlined in the conduct code. It's recommended that the board approve this language and approve the first reading of BP 5144.
All right. Do we have any public comment regarding this item? Mr. Aguiano.
I'm Aaron Anguiano, parent. Yes, I welcome this change, and this is what I've been talking about, especially in one of these paragraphs about exclusionary discipline. Where is that? Yes, 1, 2, 3, third paragraph. So it needs to be emphasized to the sites and the administrators and assistant principals and vice principals that really when a child has an issue, bring the parents in. That's what we're there for. Don't be doing the punishment and let me know 2-3 days later that you suspended my child the whole day. My son was suspended for a whole day for not being on time to one of his classes because one of the gates would not be unlocked because of security reasons. Yet, if he goes to the bathroom and goes to class, he cannot make it in those minutes allowed. So he was punished a whole day. And so I'm here, you know, you always watch, I really watch my children. I'm really strict because I have very high expectations. And so, like, what the heck did he do now? Oh, he missed school the whole day? Well, one thing didn't know what the other hand did. And so I find out that he wasn't in a detention room all day. Like, so then I called, Davis High and figured out what happened. And sure enough, he was suspended the whole day. And then, okay, I don't think it's going to happen again. I talked to the principal. I know the principal, know him for years. Anyway, so, I mean, my issue's resolved, but that's the problem, There's an issue, call the parents, we'll deal with it. For sure, we know how to deal with it, okay? But don't take it upon yourself just to hold them there and then we'll fix it. I'm sure we'll fix it. And then some of the people I know, including administration, even board members, there's this ghost parent that doesn't answer the phone. There's this ghost parent that doesn't teach good habits to the child. Well, how does the child get to school every day on time? I wonder, where's this ghost parent that is so bad, And that's why we have CPS, right? Don't we have CPS? It's not our jobs to do CPS stuff, So I really like this. And then as long as it's emphasized to the sites that, hey, we're not just here to hold children, exclude them from the classroom. That's what we call exclusionary discipline. We're here to deal with it. Does he need counseling? Does he need special ed? Whatever it is, let's deal with it. Not just hold them out of the classroom without instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see, back to the board, Trustee Daly, did you have a comment or question?
Couple. Personally, I have serious issue with the use discipline. I believe it should be consequence. However, that's neither here nor there. Consequences need to be natural, which brings me to my point in question earlier in reference to removing recess as a discipline or a consequence due to not completing academic assignments. I can understand that in certain instances for maybe fourth grade up. However, K-3, recess is an extremely important aspect of even academics. So I don't see specifically in the BP, right.
In the air.
So I don't know how we necessarily have the ability to, as a board, make that recommendation.
I will tell you that the site principals, in instances to where recess is taken away, are very, very strong and adamant about that truly is the method of last resort. And when they get wind of it about certain things, oftentimes they work with the teacher and recess is not taken away. To your point, I believe a lot of teachers and most administrators believe that a student needs to go out for recess for all the reasons why a student needs to go out to recess.
That was not my impression from back to school nights. So that's just where my concern is at, is natural consequences are an appropriate thing. We have them. If, as an adult, you're speeding, a natural consequence is possibly you're going to get pulled over. If you're speeding, you could get in an accident. Those are natural consequences. So natural consequences to an academic problem would be an academic consequence. A natural consequence to a recess problem, if there's a behavior problem on recess, would be, but when understanding from instructors, I'm not intending to throw anybody under the bus, but in my understanding is there are consequences to recess for academic and not completing academic assignments. I just want to voice that that's not an appropriate consequence.
Trustee Marks.
You got my other mic working?
Maybe. Hey,
There
they
it
got
is.
it working. Okay, thank you. I saw it was gone. I was like, oops. So are you referring to the AR 5444C? It says recess restriction. And the first paragraph says, teachers may restrict a student's recess time only when they believe that this action is the most effective way to bring about improved behavior. When recess restriction involves the withholding of physical activity from a student, teachers shall try other disciplinary measures before imposing the restriction. Recess restriction shall be subject to, and then it gives you these following conditions. So they're informing the principal about it. It remains under, I'm going backwards, but I'll go first. The student shall be given adequate time to use the restroom and get a drink or eat lunch as appropriate. They shall, number 2, that remain under certificated employee's supervision during the period of restriction. And number 3, the student's teacher shall inform the principal of any recess restrictions imposed. So that's, if they're going to impose a recess, that sounds fairly serious by everybody involved. That's like almost a last resort and then also has to let the principal know. So are you asking to have something changed in that, or added to, or taken out, or what is your request?
My suggestion would be to possibly add for K through third to not have recess as a consequences for academic performance.
All right.
Trustee Maestas?
Yeah, so I know this is an AR, so I'm just simply making a suggestion in this piece. Teachers may restrict a student's recess time only when they believe this action is most effective way to bring about improved non-academic behavior. That's a way of making note that the behavior is non-academic in nature. It could be cursing, it could be roughhousing, it could be all those things. And then that way, then it just covers that. So that's my recommendation to you. You can look over it, think about it. I think that those are things that the admin and the teachers need to talk about, because if we're hearing those things in back-to-school nights, that means that they're happening.
And that's why I said K third, because I think as kids get older, they need to understand there are certain consequences for not completing assignments. And so, but K third is that really implement the importance of physical activity for brain development. So it's that specific age really that I'm concerned about.
Well, and I would extend it because the research on assignments and homework says that there's no positive impact until they get into middle school. So keeping a kid from recess for not completing a homework assignment in fourth grade could still cause a negative impact on their academic achievement, according to research. So I would not put K-3. I would just extend it, because the only recess we're having is K-6. There's no recess in junior highs.
All right, Vice President Urban.
I would tend to, agree with both Trustee Daly and Maestas, strictly from the developmental standpoint in, like I say, K-3, really understanding the consequences, in the Black community or in Black families during that time to get adherence. It's usually a little more corporal. But we're in school, but developmentally, I can see where that can be an issue, and that type of discipline or consequences for K-3, and maybe said based on that research, take it to K-6, because that's where our recesses happen. It's my comments.
All right. So do we have a motion to approve the first reading of the Board Policy 5144.1? And we have a recommendation for some slight language change on the AR. We have a motion? A motion by Trustee Daly, second.
By Mark.
Trustee Marks. Those in favor? Aye. And we move now to item 15, which is a review of proposed revision of AR 5144.2, suspension and expulsion due process for students with disabilities.
I have it at BP 5144.1. Am I as one? Oh, wait. Of the,
Oh, did I miss 14? I did. Wait a minute. We're on 14, okay.
So just read that.
So this is approval of the first reading of the proposed revision of Board Policy 5144.1, suspension and expulsion due process, and a review of the proposed revision.
Yeah, BP and AR 5144.1 provides updated language on suspension, expulsion, and due process. The language provides information on in-campus suspensions, memorializes California law on not being allowed to suspend any students in grades TK through 8 for willful defiance. It's definitely recommended that the board approve the language to the updated language to BP 5144.1.
All right, do we have any public comment on this item?
I'm Aaron Anguiano, a parent. And again, my intent is to see the law change because, okay, this policy is in agreement with the state law, but my hope is to get rid of suspensions and do counseling. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I got one now. And I don't know if I read this, for suspensions. It says a student's parents, guardians shall be notified as soon as possible when there's, oh, I'm sorry. Second page, 5144.1A. Just the second paragraph, well, I guess it's the first paragraph because the second line is, a student's parents, guardians shall be notified as soon as possible when there is an escalating pattern of misbehavior that could lead to on-campus or off-campus suspension. But there isn't anything about a student's parent or guardian being notified when a student is given a on-campus suspension or something of that. Should that be in there? Like, they need to know when there's escalating behavior, but they also need to know when something happens where we've taken them out of class.
Oh, good.
Oh, go ahead. I was
No
going to
question.
say, yes, I agree, and I have a suggestion for how to word that, so that a student's parents or guardians shall be notified as soon as possible, and we could do and when there is an escalating pattern. So they'd be notified twice. So, or just make it so that they're notified as soon as possible, that there's a pattern of behavior that could lead to on-campus or off-campus suspension. I'd just let them know right away.
I'd make a recommendation because that is, in that second section, I agree with trustee Marks, but I think it would be cleaner because right there, we're notifying parents and guardians if there is escalating behavior. That's before they're suspended. And on-campus suspension, I would just add a third paragraph, if you will, and say parents, guardians will be notified as soon as possible when students are given on-campus suspension. So it's both. So
Yeah.
it's two separate issues.
Yeah.
One is
Right.
it's
I agree.
escalating. We have some concerns here, and the other one is, all right, now this is a separate day, perhaps later in the day, whatever that looks like, but they actually have blended in.
Okay, I like that. That sounds good, too.
Great. All right. Vice President Urban, did you?
Just want to make a point as soon as possible. Given the natures of schools and the busyness and the things like that, I don't want as soon as possible to be 2 weeks later because, there was so much going on campus, I'm just making that comment because it is broad, who defines as soon as possible?
24 hours
Yeah.
would be typically what should be done.
Right, okay. Can we put that? Yeah. Well, yeah, so, yeah, I would be good with 24 hours, because things do happen. You got to write reports, you got to do this, so we got to be cognizant of on both ends, with parent and with the school as well.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the first reading of this board policy 5144.1 with the addition that parents will be notified within 24 hours of an on-campus suspension? Motion by trustee Maestas, second by trustee Daly. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we move on to item 15, which is review of proposed revision of AR 5144.2, suspension and expulsion due process for students with disabilities.
And this is only an AR. AR 5144.2 is an update to the existing AR and includes information on the suspension and expulsion of students with disabilities. The new information provides some updated information on, that complies with what you're going to see a little bit later, on foster youth who also may qualify for an IEP and falls in line with our existing practices. Board have any questions or concerns on AR 5144.2? Or, yeah, 5144.
First, do we have any public comment on this AR? Seeing none, any comment or questions from the board? And this is review only, so we have reviewed that. We'll move on to item number 16. Which is approval of the first reading of proposed revision of Board Policy 6146.4, differential graduation and competency standards for students with disabilities.
Yeah, this one may come back a couple times because they keep making some subtle adjustments, but BP 6146.4 is an update that provides changes to the differential graduation and competency standards for students with disability. This update provides information on another path that was approved by the state toward a diploma for students with moderate to severe disabilities. The changes conform with the current state requirements. It's recommended that the board approve BP 6146.4.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the first reading of Board Policy 6146.4?
I move approval.
Motion by trustee Marks, second by trustee Daly. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And takes us to item number 17, which is approval of the first reading of proposed revision of Board Policy 6173.1, Education for Foster Youth, and review of the proposed revision of the AR.
Yeah, BP and AR 6173.1, again, to the point I made before, includes the updated language on the education of foster youth in general, non-necessarily IEP. The new language aligns with the current practices that we follow within Modesto City Schools and conforms with changes in the requirements. It's recommended that the board approve the revised BP 6173.1.
All right, any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, do we have approval for this item 17, Board Policy 6173.1, Education for Foster Youth? Motion by trustee Lopez, second by Vice President Irvin. Those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item 18, which is the approval of the first reading of proposed draft of Board Policy 6177, which is summer learning programs.
Thank goodness, the exhaustion is kicking in. My last one, BP 6177 provides information on summer learning programs. New language recognizes the benefits of summer learning and aligns with our current practices of providing targeted remediation and access to summer learning opportunities. It's definitely recommended the board approve BP 6177. As a matter of fact, I had thought I'd taken it previously to the board, but I had not.
Okay. Yes, any public comment on this item 17, this summer learning?
Yes, thank you. I get here quickly, Mr. President. Summer learning is really good. My son, he was in 7th grade, I think, 8th grade. 7th grade summer, after 7th grade, he went to summer school here at Modesto High and took a speech class, 3 classes, I think, and it was really good. He really learned how to give a speech and all that, and he was with high schoolers, and it's a good experience. And we miss it because I haven't seen the list anymore after that. I know you've been short on teachers and all that, but yeah, if you can have a program that, and just in key areas, like I like him to play sax, but I haven't seen any sax program because he plays baseball. But yeah, that'd be really good. I'm for it, as a parent. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board? Trustee Maestas.
Okay. One, I've got 3 or 4 things here on this one. One, the term learning loss is deficit-based. It's appropriate in this context, just because we're talking about summer break and we do have students that forget things, but it is deficit-based. And so I know that we've tried to switch from a deficit-based mindset to a growth. And by continuing to use words like learning loss, we continue to formulate deficit-based. Now, I looked and tried to come up with terms that would work in this case, and I really can't, because this is a deficit when we talk about summer break and extended breaks. So just wanted to note that I realize that we're using a deficit-based language for that. On the bottom of this, in summer school, it's right after, it's the second one on the summer school on the first page. The district summer school program may be used to provide supplemental instruction to students needing remediation and/or enrichment in core academic subjects. I'm wondering if in any time in the future, we're talking about advancement in any core subjects. Enrichment and advancement are 2 different things. Enrichment could be speech. Advancement is taking Spanish 1 in the summer so that I can take Spanish 2 and then get into AP Spanish later on. So I'm wondering if we want to add language in there to say advancement in core subjects. It does say may, so it's not saying that we have to, but we could in some point in the future add those.
The board's reminded at the last board presentation, we talked about next steps for summer school, and that is the vision for this coming summer, is to be able to provide what's referred to as first look. In other words, taking a course to be able to advance yourself. So we are working towards that, so I don't see any
I don't
issue
see a
with that.
problem. It does say may to your point, so it's not exclusive that, hey, you can't do anything else, but I don't think calling it out is necessarily a bad thing either.
Yeah, I mean, if this is our vision, I'd like to put it in a board policy that has our vision. Speaking of that vision, BP 6177B, strategies to support summer learning may include but are not limited to 1, 2, 3, 4, number 5. You know where I'm going with this one. Assigning summer vacation homework in core curricular subjects for extra credit. Extra credit is an inaccurate measure and inequitable tool for grading. I cannot approve anything that has any inaccurate or not equitable grading elements to it. If you just think about it, if it was extra credit, where would it go? Would it go to the previous course or the next course? And if it does go to the next course, what about kids who were in Mexico for the year or the summer and couldn't do any of that work? Are they now in a disadvantage? So I would just strike 5 out. I just don't want to encourage it in a board policy. So that's what I would like to do, is take out 5.
Actually, what I would like to do is take this opportunity to pull this board policy so we can have a conversation with the Teachers Association, because this is just part of a larger work around equitable grading practices. So I would encourage us to pull this, have a conversation this year, in addition to other conversations that we're having around summer work. I've had it as a to-do list for a number of years. This would kind of spark that work. That's my recommendation.
Well, on that, it does say may include. So if we just don't put it in here, then we can continue our work with equitable grading without putting something in a policy, right? So I'm not saying we have to have a policy in here that everything has to be equitable and stuff. I'm just saying we don't put something in here that isn't, and we continue to do our work with teachers, with the association, and then they can start to make those decisions on their own. I just don't want to encourage something. I don't think we need to bring it back. I just think we need to just take out what could possibly be issues.
That's fine.
Vice President Urban?
Yes, I was just wanted to go back to the language that trustee Iestis talked about in terms of the terms of deficit, language and learning, summer school. I was one of those students who could have very well needed summer school, but I stayed away from it because everybody knew that all the kids who went to summer school, they were doing bad in classes. So I deprived myself of going to summer school because of that label, And so I want to, encourage that we use, that's an opportunity, to continue for growth learning, to stay on top of your game or further your game, so to speak, during the summertime to reduce brain drain, you got other countries that go to school year round, and they seem to be pushing us further down on the totem pole in terms of achievement of students, because of that, because there's no limits, including weekend, Saturday. So, yes, I just wanted to point that out.
All right, trustee Marks?
Yes, I agree with adding advancement and probably means eliminating the word enrichment, or do we do advancement? Okay.
Yeah, I would-
Advancement, comma,
I would keep it.
enrichment. Okay, keep enrichment.
Definitely.
All right, I agree with that. And I wanted to ask if it's possible to check with the Teachers Association and find out what their thoughts are on 5, because if this is a practice they've been doing, maybe it doesn't need to be in a board policy, but just so we're aware, but I'd be okay with voting on it and eliminating it, but if there is something on the second reading, let us know so we can adapt to what the teachers prefer. Because there may be something going on that we're just unaware of right now in this boardroom, that they'd like to keep the extra credit for something. I don't know what that would be, but that's why we want to get their input.
I could definitely, oh,
I want to make a note that by taking it out, doesn't say you can't do that.
Okay.
It just doesn't say, like, you
highlighted.
could, it's highlighted, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So do we need to make reference to courses like AP and IB where there's preparation work in the summer?
Yeah.
that's in a different board policy to the point that trustee Maestas is making. This just calls out with the language to his point. Summer learning may include, but is not limited to. So it's not leaving those as the
Right.
only options for, it's just giving it examples. So if we were to remove it, to his point, it just wouldn't highlight it. It doesn't mean a teacher would be restricted to do it. But summer homework on AP is, I believe, in a different board policy that I know that trustee Maestas had brought up maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Are you okay if I make a motion?
Yes, and clarify what
Yes, I will.
changes are going to be in
So
that.
I make a
please.
motion to approve Board Policy 6177 on summer learning programs, and we're to add advancement in the first page, and to eliminate item 5 from page BP 6177B.
Motion by trustee Marks, second by trustee Maestas. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I've been informed that lunch is ready for us, so let's take a lunch break for, how much time do we need?
15, let's just do 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
Is that okay?
What I can say is I'm looking at this next page. We have 19 through 34, all deletions with the exception of 1. So it's going to go pretty fast, so. Okay?
Oh,
Excuse me, who seconded on the last item? Thank you.
So we're all nourished and back at it, and we're moving into a new phase. And this is Mr. Zerly. Would you please address the next block of items, and we'll see if it's appropriate for us to deal with them all together.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon now, trustees. I have the next 18. 15 of those are recommended for deletion, and we're deleting those because the language now exists either somewhere else or it's outdated and is no longer needed. So we've done a job over the last couple of years of bringing on new board policies or aligning that with CSBA. But what we did not do, at least in business services, is take a look at the ones that are existing board policies that can now be deleted because we have other language somewhere else. So we're taking an opportunity because we did not have a lot of mandated board policy revisions this time, just to take the opportunity to clean up existing numbers that are out there that are no longer needed. There is one, and I apologize, I think if we take them in a block, there is one, Board Policy 3271. It does have an administrative regulation language. That one is for, is because we liked that language. We want to make sure we keep that administrative language, and we don't have it anywhere else. So that's the only one where we're deleting the board policy. And although there's not an AR in CSBA, we believe that's important for our operations and are recommending to just share with the board revision to that administrative regulation.
Okay, so if we could look at a block of deletions, items number 19 through 29. First, before we take action, I want to just see if there's any public comment about us dealing with that block of 11 items. Seeing none, any comments or questions from the board? I did go to the public. Yes. All right, do we have a motion for deletions, items number 19 through 29 on the agenda? Motion by trustee
I will
Mejia,
second it with
Sorry, I forgot my microphone wasn't on. I second it, but I ask the motion to add 23, item 23 as a revision and not deletion of AR 3271. Is that okay with the motion? Okay.
okay, so just for record, want to indicate that we are not listing all of the board policies that we're deleting. We're referencing them by the number on the agenda. Items 19 through 29, with the exception of item number 23, which is a revision of the AR, but a deletion of the board policy. So you have?
Yeah, he made a motion, I seconded it, but he agreed to the change with the revision.
Okay, so the motion by trustee Mejia, the second by trustee Mark with that one revision. Those in favor? Aye. Aye. We just made some huge, quick progress. We're now down to.
Mark is jealous.
Yep. We hit the slide. Okay, so now we're going to look at item number 30, which is a new AR 3551 for petty cash funds. So I'll give everybody a moment to catch up and find number 30 in the book. And Mr. Zerly, this is yours.
Yes, thank you. This is a review of language for a new administrative regulation, 3451, for petty cash funds. The administrative regulation language is attached for your reference only, has been reviewed by our Financial Services Department for consistency with our practice of handling petty cash funds. It is important, we believe, for the school sites to have a small amount of cash on hand for necessary purchases, as you can see, that are listed in the administrative regulation language. It is something that we're currently doing, but we did not have this AR for that.
So do we have any public comment regarding this AR? Seeing none, any comments or questions from the board? Is that you, Vice President Irvin, or is that carryover? Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask that, if we have any similar in the past, and what was the amount in the past? Or is this establishing one?
This recognizes our current practice since I've been here, and even before that, there hasn't been any change to amounts or procedures for the governance of petty cash funds.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. It references a periodic but not specific, time-specific reporting of a reconciliation. And I'm, in my business, we do that monthly just to be sure that there's no discrepancies. Is it not advisable that we have that tied to a specific schedule?
We have it tied to an annual schedule because that's when our school year or fiscal year ends, and we do our audits of the prior year transactions. However, we have established a best practice in financial services to go out and meet with the individual school sites in preparation of the year end to make sure they have everything in line, because if we wait until summer when there's not a lot of people at our school sites for obvious reasons, it's hard to make sure that everything is in order. So we do go out, I would say probably quarterly. That is our practice to do that, and in advance of the audit to make sure that everything is being reconciled and accounted for ahead of time.
All right. So this is an AR, not something we vote on, but we have reviewed it. So thank you. And now we move to item 31, approval of the first reading. And this is another deletion. And let's look at the list. Do we have a block that we can deal with here?
Yes, it would be my recommendation, if the board agrees, 31, 32, and 33 on the agenda are all recommended for deletion. As we now have, on April 1st of 23, we established a new administrative regulation, 3512, that covers the language in each, that are referenced in each one of these.
All right. So as we deal with the next items, 31, 32, and 33 for deletion, we're going to ask if there's comments from the public related to any of those items. Seeing none, any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do we have a motion for that block of deletions? Motion by Trustee Mejia, second by Vice President Irvin. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that was unanimous, so that motion carries. We now move on to item 34, which is approval of the first reading of proposed revision of board policy 3513.3, tobacco-free schools, and review of the proposed draft of the AR 3513.3.
Yes, this is the first reading and review of language revising current board policy 3513.3 for tobacco-free schools, and the corresponding new language for administrative regulation 3513.3. The revised board policy language details the procedures mandating a tobacco-free schools policy that prohibits the use of tobacco and nicotine products in district-owned or leased buildings, on school property, and in district vehicles. The new administration regulation language has been reviewed and is attached for your reference only. It is recommended to approve the first reading of Board Policy 3513.3 for tobacco-free schools.
And let's see, with regard to that board policy revision, do we have any public comment? Seeing none. I see a couple of comments or questions from board members. Trustee Marks?
So I noticed that it says plant or plant product intended for inhalation on the bottom of the first page, right, just before the very last line. But it doesn't really stipulate that it's for cannabis or any other plant products. So I was surprised that it's only tobacco-free and not tobacco and cannabis-free. Just wondering if that's in another place, or, because since the state made cannabis legal for, I think it's over 18, can we still restrict it on campus?
I believe there's another board policy.
On cannabis? Or?
I think that you're going to find cannabis under drugs, because we have a board policy just on all sorts of different
Yeah.
drugs, and so it would have been embedded in there. Just because it's legalized for adults
Oh.
it's legalized in California for adults, that doesn't mean that it's okay on school campuses, and we can, I'm sure, and we can take a look at that to see
Okay.
if it's embedded in there.
And we do receive, I'm sorry, this particular board policy is specific to tobacco, as we receive tobacco prevention funds. And so that's what this particular board policy is referencing.
Right,
Yeah.
and you can't, we get federal money, so it can't be legal here.
Yes.
Right. Well, yeah, I was glad this was illegal. I just was hoping to expand it to the cannabis, but if that's in another location, I'm totally fine with it.
Trustee Maestas?
Thanks, I had the same question, but thank you for the answer. I am confused with grammar with some of this. This is it starts on, let's see, 1, 2, I guess it's the third, where it says, these prohibitions apply to all employees, students, and visitors or athletic event held on or off district property. I think they're missing some words there.
A period after visitors and some kind of reference to the athletic event.
Or athletic event.
I'm wondering if the and other
We will,
persons at any school instructional program or school-sponsored activity should not be lined out.
This is the actual language from CSBA. It says, these prohibitions apply to all employees, students, and visitors at any school-sponsored instructional program, activity, or athletic event held on or off district property.
Okay, so those words are not in here.
I'll make a grammatical change to this.
Okay.
To make it more clear.
Okay.
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 Yeah, and it's important because those are words that aren't in there.
Right.
Not like just a comma, so,
Yeah, there's some words stricken that shouldn't be, but,
yeah. And then that's it, that's all I have.
all right. Trustee Daly?
So whether we like it or not, we live in a free country and people have the ability to smoke. I'm not saying that they should have the right to smoke on campus. However, for those adults that legally have the ability to smoke, do we do anything to support them in quitting smoking rather than, because this, like, nicotine is addictive, so is there anything in here where we're gonna support maybe staff or teachers in?
Cessation?
Yeah.
I think that would be in our wellness policy, and I actually have Mr. Henderson over in the other building over there working on negotiations, because he's got 8 hours worth of work there. But that would be in the wellness policy, and we do have supports for employees that wish to quit smoking or other drug-related issues or instances. So that is in another policy, and also, in the supports we have.
All right. With no other comments, do we have a motion for the approval of the first reading of the proposed revision of this board policy 3513.3?
I motion approval with the changes laid out in the first page on those
Great.
words added.
I'll second it.
Motion by trustee Maestas and second by trustee Marks. Those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
So President Brown, on this next one, BP 3541.1 and AR 3541, it was asked yesterday from a board member to have this pulled so we could have a larger discussion on transportation and the distance for walking. That was actually by trustee Marks yesterday, so I inadvertently forgot to tell you that at the beginning of this presentation, but we'd like to pull 3541.1, AR 3541.1, Exhibit 3541.1, along with AR 3541. Mr. Zerly will be looking at implications for changing not bus routes, but walking distances, both with the number of buses and transportation and drivers that we have, and also the distance that we could potentially accommodate. That'll come back either in the fall or the winter as we look to do some analysis on this. We couldn't engage in the conversation and say, yeah, let's move this to a half a mile when we don't know what the implication is. And so I have Mr. Zerly working on that. So I recommending that we pull those two.
That's items 35 and 38
Yes.
that we propose to pull for discussion at a future board meeting.
Yes.
All right. 35 and 38. So
Yes.
we're proposing to pull that. Is there a need for public comment on pulling that? I see no public comment. Do we have a motion to pull items 35 and 38?
I have a
for
question.
future?
I have a question before we pull things.
Okay.
35 and 38 are mostly ARs, except for the deletion of what we currently have. Is it necessary to pull it if we're going to, well, one, they're ARs, so we should still have a discussion, right? But the AR, we're just gonna make a recommendation, but we can still bring it back. But in terms of the BP, this is what we have right now. This is what we follow right now. If we approve the deletion of it, then we have nothing?
I can clarify that. That particular board policy, 3541.1, excuse me, there's not a corresponding CSBA board policy for that. That's one that this district had implemented as a board policy years ago. And it really is, if you read the language, it really is how we're going to provide transportation. So it sets our radiuses for who's eligible for transportation. And so we're proposing just to delete the board policy because we approved board policy 3540 on May 16th of 22. That covers transportation. And so this actually, item 38 is that exact language as an AR. So we've taken the board policy, and item 38, AR 3541, is that same language, but we're proposing to have it as an administrative regulation because it defines how we're going to provide student transportation, if that helps and makes sense.
Well, and that does make a lot of sense. I'm okay, I mean, this is my opinion, I'm okay with deleting the policy because having the policy kind of puts us in this hole of what we're doing right now. And if we just delete the policy, then we have time to come back and talk about how are we gonna change that, how is the district gonna change the AR to best support students, and then we don't have to go back and delete the policy again. Because it doesn't matter, because it's not gonna be in a policy anyway, it's gonna be in an AR. So deleting the policy now doesn't change the fact that we still have to change the AR. All it does is it gives us actually the opening to now provide that opening to now talk to everybody and have the conversation about these transportation issues. It doesn't allow, do you understand what I'm saying?
And
If
the
we deleted it,
language-
it gives us more options than if we keep it.
And the language that is referenced is what we're doing. We've been doing it since May 12th of 2003. That's the last time this language was revised. We're not suggesting we change the language at this point in time without a review of, okay, what would it take or what would it look like to, now we have utilized this language to make some adjustments. We've done it at Fairview, Shackelford, La Loma, Downey. So we have, under the discretion of the superintendent, we have utilized the opportunity to do better than what's listed on this sheet. But no matter what happens, I mean, this is what governs our transportation process, and it has been in existence. The last time it was revised was May 12th of 2003. So all we're doing is saying it better fits in an AR because right now we're not recommending to change anything. We have to go through a process before we do that, if that helps.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Quick question. If we go ahead with the first reading of that deletion, we could put the actual second reading on the agenda the day that we have the discussion about.
We could, but I actually agree with Trustee Maestas' analysis of it, that, I mean, either way, we could do that.
Because in my
Be
mind,
further out. We can talk to Trustee,
I have a
Trustee Marks was the
question.
one that brought this up, so maybe she wants to bring some voice to it.
So I see where you're going with this, and I see the reason why you want to take it off, but to me, it looks like if we delete this tonight, then we don't have a board policy or, because we're going to add the AR later. So there's no AR right now. So, and have a discussion about the AR at a future point so the public can have a discussion about the walking distance and our staff can go through the idea of bus routes, bus schedules, is it possible to reduce it? And then we can come back with an AR that says yes. But I feel like if we delete it now,
then we have
we
nothing.
won't have any board policy then. So if something happens between now and then, go, oh, we don't have the board policy, even though we're still practicing and we're still doing it. But I just prefer not to delete it until we have something to say, here's the study, here's what we're going to do, and here's why. So it just,
A package deal.
that's what I want the package deal to go together, so.
So, yeah, and I understand what you're saying. I don't know if this is clear or not. The item 38 on the agenda
Right.
is that as an AR. We're establishing that AR with that language. So those are our miles right now for the grades. We're not recommending to change that at this point in time. However, we do change it when something becomes apparent to us, and we can. So the language is still there. We have a board policy, 3540, that governs transportation. And so that is in existence. We're not changing it. That's why it's not on this agenda. But board policy 3541.1 that identifies the grade level and the mileage, that is replicated, and it's in AR 3541, which is item 38. But if you want it as a, board policy.
Yeah, the point here is that if we delete this, it's in an AR. If we don't delete it, then we're just gonna delete it later because it's gonna go in an AR. Like, it
Right.
doesn't matter, it's gonna go in an AR.
Yes,
We need
and
to
that's
keep
what
it
I'm
on the
asking.
books
Yeah.
until we
Yeah.
have something to replace it, is what Cindy's saying.
I'm just asking because I brought this up at a few board meetings that I would like to have a discussion at a regular board meeting about transportation and our students' walking distance, how it is specific to students who do not have as many resources as other students in town. So I just wanted to have that conversation at another time where the public can, especially the ones who live in neighborhoods nearby here, they can have an opportunity to say, hey, can you change this? My kid has to walk this far and they don't have a sidewalk or whatever. Now, the thing we have done, I appreciate, I did not realize this, but Grigori has all bus. It's all bus out at Grigori because there's no sidewalks on Kiernan Avenue for the students to walk, and there's no sidewalks by the orchards. So I appreciate that we took that into account. But that doesn't say, I don't know what the neighborhoods here feel, but I do know that a lot of them don't have sidewalks. And how far do they have to walk to which schools. So it's just asking for that discussion in public, I mean, at a regular meeting. That's all I'm asking. So I understand we're a board and we make decisions as a group, and I am listening to you too, so.
So we have a couple of ideas on the table. Let's hear a motion and see if we can all support one motion. I'm sorry. Okay, trustee Lopez.
Yeah, so, see, the part that I'm not quite, I'm not saying not agreeing, but maybe particularly confusing to me is that if we want to bring this back, we're bringing back to the public, we're bringing back, an AR for discussion and a regular board meeting. As we all know, we can't decide or we can't make changes to the AR. Now, we can bring back a BP, but what is that going to say that's not already in BP 3540? Because that's it's already there. The deleting of 41.1 will not change transportation, which is already encompasses as Shirley mentioned. So I hear that we need to have that we need to have that conversation open for the public, and I agree with that around what should be the boundaries, what should be the bus mileage difference for those who can benefit from the bus. But how do we do that in a manner where we're not also opening up that precedent that all ARs can be up for discussion? So it's I think that it needs to be something agendized as something where Dr. Noguchi and her staff brings a recommendation of changing the mileage to a recommendation, and then we can approve that recommendation, but not exactly bringing an AR or a BP up. Does that make sense? And I don't know which way we go about that, but I leave that on the table because, yes, it's very conflicting when we're really not doing anything. We're not deleting the VP that's going to change anything. And the AR is not up for us to change, right? Unless the recommendation or the update is brought by by superintendent and cabinet.
I can make a recommendation that Board Policy 3540, we can bring back this winter with information to be able to help the discussion, because, when we go to build the ARs, it's through the discussion of the board and the community, so it's not in isolation of. And so what we don't have here is Board Policy 3540, so we can commit to putting that on the board meeting at a glance document that you all have seen, put that into the winter. Once we get the data, come back and talk through that board policy, and then get the feedback and input as we look to craft the AR, if that will work. Now, that's not solving this problem of what we're doing here, but I can put that in, because I'm hearing a consensus here, that we can bring that back in the wintertime.
And I would say that I would agree that we need to bring back BP 3540, and in that we have the ability to say, hey, you know what? We would like an assessment of our routing transportation, given our population, given growth, and given transportation needs of state and county neighborhoods. And so that way we can set a precedent that we're not going to wait 5-10 years to readjust that, right? Where we're having an assessment being done of our routes yearly or every 2 years. So that way we will be having this conversation of, do we need to adjust certain things given on what's happened in the last 2 years on a more continuous basis. And that's the way we set precedent, and then AR will have to adjust accordingly.
Trustee Daly, did you have a comment?
I just want Dr. Noguchi kind of solved that problem, I think, but because I agree with trustee Marks in reference to if we take away this board policy, then we have run into the problem where trustee Lopez says, like, we're talking about bringing ARs, and that's not our responsibility nor the public's, it's the cabinets, the superintendent and the cabinet. So I appreciate that, bringing back that other one, so it kind of
Okay.
solves my questions.
Good. And I have a question related to that as well. It seems to me that the distance is something that the board wants to make a decision on. Can we add a paragraph in the board policy 3540 that specifies those limits and a timeframe for the review?
I can say we can bring that back when we bring back that board policy and talk about consequences and unintended consequences for setting mileage in a board policy. Because any sort of mileage is, if you put that in a board policy, then we're required to do that. And if we don't have the bus drivers or the bus, then how do you do that? Also, the unintended consequences for doing one and not another. Again, that is just a much larger conversation. I know that you might remember that Ryan Hahn came here with a transportation study that he did, I believe in May of this last year, and it was 45 minutes of going through different routes. So we have studied it extensively, and as such, we moved transportation for 4 schools in a different than what is represented here in the AR. So in answer to your long answer to your question, we can do that, and we can bring that back when we discuss the board policy, but also the unintended consequences for that, because we know there's a lot of different factors that go into transportation, not just the drivers or the bus, but also financial resources. When things get squeezed, everything gets squeezed. So then what, that's part of a larger conversation when we bring that back.
Masters.
I was just gonna say that was my point in deleting it, is that it gives us flexibility to make changes as we get more information. But we keep a policy unless doesn't give you any flexibility, like it has to be this way. But I'm okay waiting. I mean, it's fine.
I would propose.
And I
that
want to know more about what's.
Okay,
I'll
Cindy,
make a motion to pull these 2 items, or number 35 and 38, which have to do with board policy 3541.1, and then the ARs that's associated with it, to be discussed at the winter meeting, along with board policy 3540, or at least an update on 3540 and what the plan is.
A motion by trustee Marks. Do we have a second? Trustee Daly is our second, and all in favor? Aye. Okay, we're all in agreement. What's that? Okay, so we have 1 no, and the remaining board members have voted yes. So the motion passes. Okay, item number 36.
Let's see. This is a review of language for the new administrative regulation 3542 for school bus drivers. The administrative regulation is attached for reference only and has been reviewed by our transportation department for consistency with our practices.
Okay, do we have any public comment related to this? This is the AR 3542. Seeing none, do we have any comment or questions from the board related to this AR? And this is an AR, so we will not be taking action. We have reviewed this AR. And with that, I see that we have come to the conclusion. 38's already been addressed. It's been pulled. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion by trustee Maestas. Second
By Maya.
and third by Maestas, or Mejia and Marks. Those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for enduring this session with us.